Hey, I'm Stephanie, and it's time for a head-to-head, or in this case, eyeball-to-eyeball comparison of eyeshadows and eye primers. It's all part of my Panning for Gold series here, where I pit products with similar claims in head-to-head testing so that I can find the true gold nuggets of my collection. But this quest for gold is high stakes because my goal is to declutter anything that isn't a gold nugget. If you want more info about the project, I'll link the intro video in the show notes, but you've got everything you need to enjoy this one, I think. I'm testing a full face of makeup at any given time, but I do come back and provide updates anytime I strike gold, which is why I'm here today to talk all about my trials and tribulations with eye stuff. So we'll be talking about 2 eyeshadow palettes and 2 eye primers. Let's go in order of application and start with the primers. I pit this Urban Decay eyeshadow primer potion in the original formula against this Milk Makeup Hydro Grip eye primer. Before we begin, do you have any thoughts on these? Have you used them? Do you have an opinion? Do you have a prediction as to which one I liked better? If so, feel free to share them in the comments. Going into this competition, the Urban Decay primer was the as yet undefeated champion, helping me to achieve smooth, well-blended eyeshadow looks that stay all day or all night, as the case may be. So, how does it hold up against the new challenger from Milk Makeup? Well, it's been interesting. I feel like these 2 primers serve 2 entirely different purposes, where the Urban Decay primer kind of gives my skin a smooth surface to achieve a very graceful blend. I feel like the Milk Hydro Grip primer is true to its name. It grips, and I found that to be a disadvantage when it came to blending things like matte eyeshadow. No matter what formula I used, no matter how good it was, no matter what brushes I used, or how much attention I paid to my blending, I always found my matte eyeshadows to look just a little bit patchy when I used this primer. So it must be junk, right?
Yes!
Not so fast, because when it comes to shimmery formulas, that's where this one shines. When I use this primer, I find that I can apply less of my shiny eyeshadow and yet get higher impact. So less product weighing down my eyelids, more impact. And that is something that I can very much appreciate, especially as the skin on my eyelids matures and becomes more textured. Plus, when I used the Hydro Grip primer together with satin shades, for example, this one from my Gucci Beauté des Yeux palette, I found that it brought out what I didn't even realize were shimmers in that satin formula, giving it a very subtle twinkly effect, almost like going for a walk when the stars are first starting to come out at night. And when I used this primer together with my Tom Ford wet and dry shadow formulas, I didn't necessarily have to use them wet to get more of a distinct shine. It's almost like it brings out some of the individual shiny particles. However, when I used this together with my Viseart satins, which can be a slightly difficult formula, I felt like this one made them look softer and smoother. So, what's the verdict? They're both gold nuggets, and I will pan both of them easily. Because the Urban Decay primer is the more reliable formula across the board with all of my eyeshadows, this still has not been dethroned, and if I could only own one eyeshadow primer, this would be the one that I choose still. However, this Milk Makeup Hydro Grip primer still has a place in my makeup bag, and that's saying a lot because every other makeup primer that I have tested against the champion has since been decluttered. Instead of continuing to test translucent primers, I thought I would change things up just a bit and start to test out some of my tinted primers. And in this case, my MAC Paint Pot, the current reigning champion in this category, I have it in the shade Soft Ochre. This will be going up against the new challenger, the Laura Mercier Caviar Stick in the shade Vanilla Kiss. So if you're interested in seeing the results of this battle, then make sure you're subscribed because I will come back and update you as soon as I have my thoughts. Now on to eyeshadow palettes, which is, to be honest, a category that I'm dreading just a little bit because if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I love my eyeshadows, but I want to keep the best of the best, so even my eyeshadows have to be put to the test. So I pit this classic Tom Ford Cocoa Mirage palette against the neutral brown stack from Melt Cosmetics. Tom Ford products are famously expensive, exorbitantly so, but I'm beginning to think that maybe the pricing goes beyond just the packaging and the branding because, okay, Melt Cosmetics. I haven't tried all of their palettes, and I haven't even lerved all of the palettes that they've made that I've tried. But the ones that I did really like, they made it into my makeup bag when I went on tour, and that says a lot. So I got a lot of use out of them. But when you pit this palette against this one head to head, there just is no comparison. And maybe it's not even fair to compare them because I think this quad cost like more than twice as much as this quint. First things first, both of these color stories are very similar, but I think I liked the colors in the Milk Stack just a teeny tiny bit better because they had just a little bit more warmth, which I think suits my skin tone just a bit better. And as a quint, this had the added advantage of having an extra shimmery shadow, which I took advantage of often, and I did miss when using this Tom Ford quad on its own. That being said, when we compare the mattes, the 4 mattes in each palette, I have to say, in direct comparison, these from Melt Makeup looked powdery, they looked makeup-y, they looked heavy, sometimes they even looked a bit patchy when compared to the Tom Ford quad, which just always looked so lightweight and natural, at times even almost skin-like, which is more of the vibe that I tend to go for. And I mean, if I'm on a massive stage, to be honest, no one's going to be able to tell the difference, but I can, and that's what matters. The difference in the matte shades was actually drastic enough so that people in my life who have no interest in makeup whatsoever actually noticed the difference. If I'm being honest with myself, I knew that the mattes in this Melt Stack leaned a little bit powdery and could be a little bit patchy if I wasn't careful, but I didn't really care because of the format of this palette. I took this with me so often because it's just so easy to pack. In certain makeup bags, it could just, slip into little nooks and crannies that the Tom Ford couldn't get into. And so sometimes I would take this more often just because of the format. But formula-wise, this just isn't a gold nugget. Now that I have formulas like Tom Ford, Viseart, Hindash, even my MAC matte shadows just outperform this by miles. So as much as it pains me, I think it's time for this stack to go. So I'm going to send it on its way to a new home where it will get the lerve it deserves. But with a feeling of gratitude in my heart, I give it a final send off by applying it to my eyes today. I enjoyed it, but it just can't remain. But that means it's time to pick some new eyeball paint. So I am currently in aversion therapy for my fear of pink. I'm not sure if it's fear of pink in general or just fear of pink lipstick. I have a feeling it's the latter, but I decided I would support my own efforts by choosing 2 pink-toned, rosy-toned eyeshadow palettes. So I chose to pit the Huda Beauty New Nudes palette against the Juicy Tartlet palette from Tarte. Tartlet Juicy? Juicy Tartlet? I'm going with the latter because it sounds juicier. If you'd like to see the results of these comparisons or any of the other items in the full face of makeup that I'm testing at any given time, then make sure that you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Not only does that help you to see more of the content that you enjoy, but it also helps me feel happy. I always love to hear from you in the comments, so I hope you'll say hi, but even if you don't, I hope you have a wonderful week and that we can all remember that even stumbling can be a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.